Triple double banger, guys. What's going on? We got Valinsky here from the communications committee of the Pixel Vault Founders DAO. Obviously, I love talking with the Pixel Vault team. Haven't talked with them in a hot minute, but I thought this would be kind of a good little update to the series that we have. So again, if you're wanting to see some of the other ones, just check out the channel and you'll be able to see them. Valinsky, there's been a whole lot that's been going on with Pixel Vault lately, but ultimately the legal wrapper for the DAO is completed. It's a legal entity. Everybody's hyped up, but give us a little bit of a background first off about how you got involved with being on the Founders DAO.
Yeah, so I've been a part of the community for Pixel Vault for some time now. I don't think as long as you or a few others in the community that have been, since been around since like last summer. I joined in, I think, winter of 2021, really full on, I guess fall, if you count some planet purchases. Yeah, I've just been following the community ever since. I really love the tight knit culture of it. I think what Pixel Vault is building is probably one of the most, if not the most ambitious project in this space right now. I thought at the time it really was, obviously before other deeds and everything came out, and I think now we have some heavy hitters. But Pixel Vault is by far one of the biggest ones. And when the opportunity came up for the Pixel Vault Founders DAO Communications Committee, I was really excited to take that opportunity. West Coast West Coast Walker was the one that really asked, and just because I had been doing like some Twitter Spaces, because I always liked conversating and networking with other members in the community, and it really evolved into something a lot grander. Because I think the Founders DAO, which is separate from Pixel Vault, I gotta say that I'm not a Pixel Vault team member, but I'm a Founders DAO committee member, and it's been a really wild ride so far. Definitely a really really turbulent time, not just for Pixel but for the entire space. So to put my feet in the mud and really like start building alongside just not just a centralized team, but in an entire community in the Founders DAO has been great experience so far. And honestly, I feel like this is just the tip of the iceberg, just from what I'm feeling and when I'm conversating with other members on. So I'm excited for what's ahead, and that's kind of my little snapshot story in a sense. Yeah, so how it first happened, I entered the Founders DAO finally. I was looking for a good price point to get in. I'm not like a very liquid trader, so I kind of wait for those prime opportunities. Obviously, when there's a scare in the air, or maybe when I get lucky, right? So I came in really just looking just like use the Founders DAO's value offerings, which are one, the community in there. It's second to none in what the diversity as well as the longevity of that community is. And then, number two, obviously, like it's partnership with Pixel Vault. So Pixel Vault is the one that created the Founders DAO, but it's sort of slowly diverging from one another, but yet remaining partners in the Meta Hero game, amongst other things. And I saw that as being a big value. I wanted a place to really grow, especially in a bear market. You know what I mean? And in that, our opportunity popped up because they had just started a communications committee a few months prior, and that was voted upon by the Founders DAO. Right, all the members in it put out to a vote that they should form a committee in regards to communications, because that was one of the big steps that needed to be done at that time. And a couple positions opened up, and myself and Bevs were nominated, and then the Founders DAO members were the ones that chose to vote to propose us to come in, and that's how it all worked out.
Sorry, I was just muted for the stream. Let me say that again. I know there's been a couple of proposals that have been put out there for people to vote on, but I also know at the same time there's been somewhat of an issue of getting people out to go and vote for these different proposals. Is there anything that you guys have thought about to increase votership in a way, or do you think that people just don't realize that some of those votes are happening, or just don't have an opinion on the votes themselves?
I think it's a combination. I mean, like I guess right now in a bear market, I've alluded to this on some of my tweets recently, but you really find out a lot in tough times. You know what I mean? About a person, about a community, and I think that's a part of it, right? Like I think when ETH is down, the NFT market is just down, and start seeing like floor prices drop, you're just like, ah, man, I don't want to participate, and you see it across every community, whether it's Bored Ape Yacht Club, Cool Cats, Meta Hero, Pixel Founders DAO, whatever, right? And I think that's a small piece of it. The other piece is, yeah, maybe people got in because they just, wanted to have some stake in the Meta Hero game, and this is kind of Founders DAO touches on a lot of the aspects without having to like partake in buying planets and buying POW and all that kind of stuff, right? So there's people that are maybe just laid back and that not looking to propose, and then there's a small really demographic of people that maybe don't want to use Snapshot, because they don't want to have like their wallet attached to something or whatever, right? So I think it's a combination of many things, but there's still, to be honest, I'm surprised at how many like proposals do get the amount of votum. Like a lot of them get to quorum, which is like what you need to get a proposal to either pass or fail, or I should say pass if it does succeed. And I think that number has been well, but I think if the Founders DAO really wants to succeed, like surpass any other DAO to date in like the NFT space, it has to bring up those numbers a lot. Like its community and its participation is part of like their secret recipe that makes it so valuable to me, at least to me personally. And I think finding ways to incentivize that are going to be really like strategic, and not just like the success of like our community interaction, but also the IP. And I have like some ideas that we've been kind of behind the curtains on. And one idea I'll get like kind of a little bit of like alpha to something I'm sort of talking to some devs in our community about is finding a way to make so that not every Founders DAO token could essentially be equal, right? And it's not a matter of how much you pay, but about how much you participate. Like maybe your Founders DAO token has a chance to like reclaim a wider, a group of rewards, or have a higher chance of getting rewards, right? So I think there's a lot that can be done, like technically, like to increase participation. At the same time, I think it comes down to culturally, right? Like building rapport, getting the right members that are interested in this, specific project, right? I mean, sometimes people come into the projects for the wrong reasons, right? We're all here to make money. Let's not like lie about that, right? If you're in here to lose money, then it's kind of interesting, right? But at the same time, it's about the future. It's not like, oh, I want to like flip this JPEG for like, a cup, 0.2 ETH or whatever more, right? Like I think the type of people that are interested into this DAO that will interest in the participation of this DAO are the ones that really see the future and the longevity of it, right? So I think that's why we're also going through this sort of turbulent time where the people that are coming in right now, I'm hoping that they have a long-term vision and they're willing to really roll up their sleeves and get into the mud.
Now, talking a fair bit about the DAO, but I do want to kind of jump into Meta Hero Universe because over the last little bit, there's been people that I've been saying, hey, when are we going to see more or any kind of gameplay, snippets, teasers, etc., etc. And today they posted a image of a Meta Hero with a breakdown of clothing attached to normal, actual, physical clothing, and they say thanks Barb, hashtag open the vault, which earlier in the week, I believe, or maybe it was last week, they Rarible also announced that they were partnering with Pixel Vault to build a dedicated marketplace. And both of these things look, incredibly cool, and people are excited and waiting for the merch. But what's going on with Meta Hero Universe for people that aren't really kind of attached and following along here? And what's your kind of notion over the next little bit when it feels like things are starting to ramp up just a little bit for it?
That's a great question, and I think just for people that are not aware of the Meta Hero universe, it's been set like the plan of it has been set out for a very long time. I think for myself, I came into it because of the grand vision of it. It wasn't like I got into this NFT collection, and several months in, they just kind of switch gears and they come up with this big elaborate plan, right? Like we've seen with so many other collections. Like Meta Hero was from the beginning supposed to be like a game changing game on the blockchain, right? Play to earn. They're really the ones that started that whole like I guess run of events. And since then it's been sort of taking these steps, and I think there has been some like sort of kickback, like, hey, why is it taking this long, and what's going on here? And but if you really look at it from a like, if you zoom out and you see what the Meta Hero game is, it's basically going to start off as a DeFi, just a plain DeFi game, like we've seen with some other, collections to date, right? You can, mention Wolf Game perhaps, right? And it's using some of the graphics that we see today with my current Meta Hero, right? This Chris Wall comic sort of style of art. That's what we've been told so far about this DeFi game. Obviously, you have the currency POW token, and it's really going to be an interactive game. I don't know whether it's going to be multiplayer, single, player, or whatever, how it's going to go. Those were like where the mysteries are at, but it's more of the confidence in Pixel Vault to date. They've been one of the most technical innovators in the space. Their art has been phenomenal. So their technical skills, their art skills, their tokenomics. I think if you combine all those things, I have the confidence personally, with like my PFP you're seeing today, and my biggest bags per se, in that they can accomplish this game with the skills that they've executed on so far. So yeah, that's a bit of the Meta Hero game, and where this sort of ties in. Like, I think it's all speculation at this point. But at the same time, there's always little breadcrumbs, hints. I don't know how much G Funk is able to reveal. I think someone put out a pretty interesting tweet today. Like, everyone, there's a little bit of a, like, I don't want to say like hate or anything like that, but it's just like a little bit of like, hey, this antsiness where, hey, we want to find out the information now, right? And I'm one of those people sometimes, right? I got a wedding coming up, and I want to, be confident in my bags to a certain point, right? But at the same time, I think, you wouldn't expect this from Tesla, you wouldn't expect this from Google or any other company that is working on something. They can't just keep dropping a tons of breadcrumbs if they think it's going to hinder their future, right? And their future is tied to the collectors, future bags, hopefully as well, but from what I've heard, and like that's speculated on, and what hints have been dropped, there's this term called, barb, and I think that, post you were talking about today alluded to that, right? And barb is, I think, build a rocket boy, and that is, from what I understand, like a really big studio that focuses on like a pretty big games. And if they are in the mix of things, that would be pretty insane in itself. You know what I mean? Because to date, if you look at all these other NFT collections out there, even the most notable ones, I don't think you can say that to that level of participation from one of these outside brands. Now you also factor in the partnerships with the MLB, Adidas, Dana White with the UFC, right? Like, these are some really, really heavy hitters, and I don't know how it all ties in. But the speculation of that the post they put up today that kind of alluded to all that speculation that came in, was really cool because, first off, you see this Meta Hero character with maybe how it might look in the game, so that comic style, the full body, right? And then you start to see them mention these real pieces of clothing. Now, I made a joke like, "Oh, am I going to get those real bits of clothing?" On Twitter today, and I don't think that's the case. I think they're really just trying to show what the texture is really going to be like in the game, kind of like where they're actually creating the art from, perhaps.
See, I thought this was kind of potentially at a hint that you were going to be able to use POW to get some of these things, because I know that they said that was going to be one of the quick things to kind of pop up. And I know that there was also the core hero competition, as well as they're currently voting on what style of hat they want to go with. And actually, I can bring that up here in a momentaro.
Yeah, I saw that post. But I mean, I don't know if it's going to be clothing, because obviously, like, each of these meta heroes has completely different clothing, and there's a lot of clothing that most of their user base might not wear. Like, for example, my meta hero has this like kind of punk collar. I don't know if I'd rock that. You know what I mean? But I do see them like sort of like painting the visual texture and vibes of what like these revamps, like these Blur Studios sort of vibes might be like. You know what I mean? That to me, like, when you really understand the texture in real life, you can really kind of connect with the art in person, right? So I think that could be where it's heading down. But to be honest, it's all speculation. And that's always the fun part, right? I mean, like, from when the collections I've had the most fun with so far, and Pixel Vault is that one. But across other ones, I've always loved when they just smack me in the face with a beautiful surprise. And I think that's where we're headed.
Yeah, so let me read a little bit off the Everywhere game site. In the near future, technology has brought humanity to the precipice of a world shifting change. There are those who want to use this technology to advantage only themselves, and those who want to use it to help all mankind. Will we look to the stars or stare only at our feet? Will we be inspired or live in fear? There's a war between good and evil in the hearts of men and women. Everything is changing, and there's no going back. It's a game, it's a community, it's a new world. The storm is on the horizon, and it is only the beginning of everywhere. Yo, listen, if this is actually the case, holy sheesh.
It's insane, bro. It's I want to say it's like the space changing, like in the fact of the NFT space, but it really does feel that way because if this is a success, I think it's going to bring so many eyes, not just from like the mainstream per se, but you'll probably see a lot more big studio participation, media participation in this because I think these companies that are quote unquote involved, right? Like I don't know about Barb, but I know that Blur Studios I think has been put out there. And if this success is really like to the level I think they aim to be on all their projects, I mean it's gonna transcend the way we like really interact with a lot of our assets and what those assets mean to like the mainstream world. So I'm excited.
Let's talk a little bit about the Punk series here, because that's what started it out. They had the original Punks 1 comic, then they came out with Punks 2, and then Punks 3. They've had the Elite Apes, the origin stories, but ultimately, the main focus for this is the Punks kind of world, and it sounds like it's going to be crossing over with the Meta Hero universe as well, even though it's looking at this rename potentially, this Everywhere game. But my question to you is, I've seen posts from G Funk and the team where they talk about how you're going to need Punk 1, 2, and 3, and then you'll get the avatar, otherwise known as PFP, profile picture. And the PFPs are going to be the ones that are the raffles or tickets into experiences and some other things. So, what do you know kind of about that? Do you figure that the Meta Hero universe generative identities are a part of these PFPs? Is it going to be only the ones from having a Punks 1, 2, and 3? What's your thoughts?
That's a great question, man. I mean, it's a tough one because at first when I heard about this Punks PFP, I was a little bit bummed to be honest because the Meta Hero PFP has been that Pixel Vault iconic PFP right to start. But I do understand the Punks PFP now that I've had more time to think about it, right? Like I think they're really trying to draw the line between the two. You have the Meta Hero vertical, which is this technical, gamified, entertainment sort of like engine in itself, more on the gaming side of things. And then you have the comic side, right? And I think they want that identity for both, And I mean, I'm sure there's gonna be a lot of crossover between their, you know, community, right? And I think it's dependent if the community's happy, right? Like if I think if they want, they have to see, the people that are holding meta heroes are a lot of like their, strongest community members, and I think those community members need to be revitalized to then participate in the comic side of things. So it's a really interesting spot to be with right now. However, I think the way it's going to work, in my opinion, from what I've heard, and I think you alluded to a lot of it, was you have to have Punk's comic number 1, 2, and 3 to be able to claim for free Punk's PFP, right? Which will then provide you the access going forward to any other comics IP and events and all those other things centered around the whole comic side of stuff, right? Now there's only I think less than 4,000 Punk's number 1 comics, right? And that leaves like an interesting sort of dilemma. Like, is there only going to be around 4,000 or less PFPs? I don't think that's the case. I think Pixel Vault seems to always be focused on like what is not right now but the future. But at the same time, by building up the future, they are taking care of their present and their collectors present. But that makes me think that there should be around like maybe just as many meta heroes there are, like maybe 10,000 punks PFPs. And in that, I think that you'll have a chance to get those if you then like this is where pure speculation comes in, and I don't know if this is the case, but maybe they'll probably give you the option to like burn your punks number 2 and 3 be able to claim other, PFP, right? Or to be able to purchase that PFP. But I think that's the sort of the direction it's going with. This sort of this gamified way of going about using those assets. Because I think everything is subject to burn, as they've alluded to many, many times. It is also weird that there's like around 15,000 of the other comics and not comic number 1. You know what I mean? So I think there's a little bit that is up in the air. But really, what we know from Pixel Vault so far over this course of this year is they really love to give their community members decisions to make. Burning has always been an option, right? They've done it in the past with their Punks comic number 1 leading into the Founders DAO. So I think it might be at that phase again to go through. But yeah, I think I'm definitely going to see if I can try and scoop up a Punks number 1 right now. They are one of the lowest points I've ever seen them. So I think if you are interested in the whole comic side of the blockchain, I mean, Punk's Comics was, I think, the OG of that, right? And I think right now is an interesting time because it's a little bit more in grasp than I've ever seen it. But yeah, it's I think it's a lot is still up in the air, and I understand. Like a lot of people like to know the facts before they put a purchase out there. And sometimes I'm one of those people, but once you find out everything, it kind of runs, right?
Yeah, 100%. So I want to talk a little bit about the planets here, and then we'll maybe wrap it up for now. But I definitely want to maybe have you on more frequently, if you will, for this.
Yeah.
But the planets, a lot of questions, a lot of speculations regarding the planets, just being like, hey, what's gonna happen with them overall? And I saw within, I believe it was the Founders DAO, VGF made a comment about how, well, there's a ton of opportunities because you are voting on what happens with the other assets within that planet, if there's land of some sort, if there's ways to monetize it, if there's ways to this, that, and the other thing, and it really kind of opens up the can of worms. But I think a lot of people are also unsure, okay, there's a whole whack ton of planets. Are they really building out individual worlds for things? Is it going to be individual games that have different components attached to it, where you have, the punks and the meta heroes kind of combining? What's kind of your thoughts on the planets and just kind of the future of how those are going to play out, especially now that Prism, the system to be able to vote, is now live?
Uh, Man, it's pretty interesting. I've been thinking about this a lot. The planets especially, because they were minted at a pretty high price from what I remember. I didn't mint them, but I did, purchase them off secondary at a reasonable price, or a lot more higher price than they are now, right? And I think that although I think voting and governance is a very strong value in anything in life, right? A lot of it is going to depend. I think the value of the planets are really going to depend on the execution of the actual game, right? Like, let's say it's a huge studio that really kicks this game off with Pixel Vault. I mean, these studios have, you know, uh, user bases of their own, big fans of their own. They've been around for like a long time. They've proven concept, right? Whoever these studios might be, if we actually are, in partnership with one to build out this initial DeFi game and maybe even a AAA game, right? Now, if that is the case, then I mean, I feel like the governance right there is so important because it's one of the first times you're having these, I guess, AAA sort of studio work on an NFT or a blockchain game in which now your planet token has governance over what the funds are in that vault, right? So I think there's a big tie into the value right there. Number two, I think people forget that you did get if you minted a planet or you held it up to a certain point, right, before a snapshot was taken, you were able to get a mint pass number 2, right? And that mint pass number 2 is, they've already alluded to it several times. There's going to be very heavy burn mechanics there. So the supply could dwindle quite a bit. And, like, I guess you can see the value in that changing if that's the case, right? I don't know. But at the same time, I do know that it's offering another identity into this whole ecosystem. But a lot of that also rides on the execution of this game, right? Like, why would you want an identity beyond the meta hero identity if you're not going to thoroughly enjoy, or if the game is not getting a lot of attention in itself, right? So I think that is another aspect. Also, another thing that we forget is, correct me if I'm wrong, but I remember each planet has its sort of own like
Resource or
yeah, like little resource on
element.
it.
Yeah.
Element, yep, element. So I don't know if they've even alluded to that yet, right? If that's going to be like factored in into like how POW is earned, if that's how rewards are claimed, or any of that kind of stuff. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I think they're. I'm not sure if they're land. I don't think they are. Personally, I really don't think they are, but I do think that they might provide some sort of like capabilities that could you know uh, provide that sort of value to your character in the game, as well obviously as the governance in the whole system. Now, the cool part is like it's like everything in life. When something obviously gets more valuable because of like the value it's because of the attention it's garnishing, because of like the entertainment it's bringing to people, then obviously the ability to govern that system or whatever it might be becomes more valuable too, right? You have a say in things. You also have a say on how like funds are being spent inside that ecosystem, and it's just the general sort of like ownership in a sense. And I think that is all sort of full circle. That has been what I've been thinking about when looking at these planets, when purchasing them, when holding them. I've been keeping that in mind, but in the same time, like I think it's obviously to date, they are, I mean, it's so hard to say what's high and what's low. Everyone has a different budget point, right? So I hate alluding that to that kind of wording, but they are at a very, very, very low point right now, and they maybe they should be, because obviously the Psychic Mint Pass, or I shouldn't call it Psychic Mint Pass, but the Mint Pass number 2 has already been sort of like given out because of Snapshot. Maybe that's where a lot of the value was put, or maybe there's something that these planets are going to do that we don't even know yet. And then, or also just maybe the governance, we're totally overlooking how big that is. I actually personally, I really think that the UpDAO itself is, not getting the attention that really it should. It's about to become one of the biggest incubators in the entire space. Like, I don't think, Steve, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think, I can't think of anything to date that has almost 8,000 ETH in its
That's a
vault.
lot. Yeah. No,
It's insane, right? Like,
that's insane.
I mean, I can't even think who else has that right now. You know what I mean? Like it's wild, and like to think that the things that are governing that are like almost in like the maybe like $10. I don't even know what they are right now, but it's to me that blows my mind a bit. And that's why I'm not really touching my planets. I'm looking to see, like, right now it's like with all this speculation on like that past post from Barb. I'm just like lost. I don't know what to double down on. Should I get like another meta hero? Should I pick some planets? Should I get some POW? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I got a wedding coming up, so I'm trying to be like scarce with what I spend, and I'm just like, crap. This made my whole decision making even worse. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know where to go, but I think at the same time, like, I've always been a believer that when the tide picks up, all the boats rise.
Yeah.
So
I love it. Listen, as we're wrapping up here, at least for this session, and again, I believe we're probably going to end up doing a whole bunch more here over the next couple months and hell, even years.
yeah.
But let's assume that somebody's hearing you for the first time. They have a founders DAO, and they're like, "Oh, this is one of the members of the committee." Just you have the floor here for a second. Is there anything that you want to say to them?
Yeah. First off, whenever they got in, I'm sure it's a lot to take in. Like the Founders DAO Discord is, fast paced. Like it's still one of the most thriving communities. It's kind of wavy sometimes, especially in this sort of bear market. Like you have some FUD a little bit here, you have some, hopium around the corner. It has everything, right? But at the same time, I think what you should really focus on if you are in the Founders DAO is one, build your name in the community, right? There's so many community members that want to support each other. There's a lot of wisdom to go around. It's not just about alpha. It's really about like kind of building that rapport, whether you're trying to build projects, whether you're trying to trade, whatever it might be. I think focus on the community first and foremost. Second is, understand like sort of the structure, like that's what I'm trying to do still. Like, what assets are in the vault, what's sort of holding us back from like, using them, what can be done to like really, bolster the value of the Founders DAO, like what we have to offer, like how are we going to generate sort of revenue, like what's the whole business structuring, like, get your mind wrapped around that, because I think that is where we're really going to take it to the next level. And I think where each member, whether you just want to chill back and not really do anything, it's good to understand how that's going to work, right? If you just want to be sort of that investor. But if you also want to be that person that rolls up their sleeve, gets into the mud, then that is a really cool spot, because I do believe that in the coming, weeks, months, we're going to see like new committees formed, and responsibilities given out to other members, so that way we can expand the value that we bring to the entire space as well as to each other. So I think those two, big things. And also, get more familiar with Pixel Vault, because I see Pixel Vault, even though, like, Steve, as well as I do, like, we're like the Founders DAO and Pixel Vault are kind of like separate. At the same time, we're partners. Pixel Vault is the one that established the Founders DAO. And to begin with, like, it's, I guess, the burn for the Punks Comic 1 to the Founders DAO. But at the same time, like, their success is very important, because, we have a big stake in the Meta Hero game, the Founders DAO does, and also, I think, that's why it's called the Pixel Vault Founders DAO, because I think Pixel Vault will always sort of like, treat us as like, those, in a sense, not founders, but that tied family to what they're building. So I think understand the Pixel Vault ecosystem, Meta Hero, Punks, and even like the, Pixel Vault Sports that they've just launched. Those are the biggest things. So yeah, thanks for giving that floor to do so.
Yeah, of course. All right. Well, Valinsky, thanks so much for coming on. And again, let's do this sometime soon, eh?
Definitely. Thanks so much, Steve.
All right. Peace. Yo, listen, that's a little bit of an update. I wanted to throw in this thing at the end, because if you guys haven't heard it, I'm kind of a sucker for the soundtrack. If you've never heard it, The Moon. Enjoy the vibe. That's going to be it. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and we'll talk soon. Peace.